South Africa is too small a framework. Think about SADC. Think about continental integration, COMESA, East African Community, ECOWAS, Maghreb, the African Union, the Tripartite Free Trade Area, that's COMESA, EAC, and SADC. The African Continental Free Trade Area, which was signed into being on the 21st of March last month, or 2018, by AU members. When we say we're teaching engineering, let's teach our students within the African context, not South African context, but the broader Pan-African context, the broader African agenda. Why? Because this will give you the scale you need for your project, the scale you need for impact, the scale you need for your products. Regional and continental integration plans, do we know as engineers, as professors, the integration strategy for SADC? What are we picking up from? What are the elements in that plan? The SADC Infrastructure Master Plan, the AU Agenda 2063. In these projects, there's a lot of engineering, a lot of infrastructure work, and we as engineers must be taking our examples, our models from the Pan-African framework. We are now talking about what we call regional competitiveness as opposed to national competitiveness. Regional attractiveness as opposed to national attractiveness. South Africa won't be attractive if Zimbabwe is unattractive. Because numbers, an investor in China, an investor in Japan, if they come into the region, they would want a larger market. They'll look at Zimbabwe, South Africa, and Malawi. And so the region must be competitive. The region must be attractive. Continental attractiveness. Where are we as engineers in terms of our programs, in terms of targeting infrastructure? Infrastructure is very important because it's a key enabler. That's water, that's electricity, that's ICT, that's public works. Seek first the kingdom of infrastructure, and the rest will follow. And who is there? Who is the infrastructure? The engineer. Infrastructure is a key enabler for all our activities. Let's look at the numbers to dramatize what I'm saying. Zimbabwe, GDP 12 billion, a population of 30 million. Meaningless. South Africa, 55 million people, a GDP 300 billion. Chicken change. Under globalization, this is nothing. I hope South Africans are listening. You cannot be a brick. You're too small to be a brick in the bricks. You must bring SADC, bring COMESA, bring the FTA area, bring Africa into the bricks. Then it makes sense to the Chinese and the Russians and the Indians. Botswana, 2.3 million people and a GDP of $16 billion. This is meaningless under globalization. As engineers, you understand these are not economies. These are Mickey Mouse economies. Useless economies. Where are the economies? That's an economy now. SADC. 280 million people. GDP, $600 billion. Now we are talking. Now you can discuss with China. You can talk to India, talk to America. The Tripartite Free Trade Area, SADC, COMESA, and East African Community together, 630 million people. Potential GDP, 1.3. Now we are discussing your projects, your products, your businesses with a larger market in access. You can then negotiate with the BRICS. You can then talk to China, not as South Africa, but as SADC, as the FTA area. Why am I saying this? Look at those economies. China, 1.3 billion people, GDP, $11 trillion. That's an economy. India, 1.2 billion people, GDP, $2.5 trillion. That's an economy. The US, 3.5 million people, GDP, $19 trillion. Shame on you, Malawi, shame on you, Zimbabwe. You are not an economy. You are a little village. South Africa, you are not a brick. Unless you go to the BRICS as SADC, as COMESA, as the FTA, you don't belong to the BRICS. Those are the numbers. Look at our potential as Africans. The African Continental Free Trade Area, 1.3 billion Africans, GDP $2.3 trillion. Now we are discussing. Can you imagine if we had to go and say, Here I come, Madam China. Here I come, Madam India. I'm the African. I speak on behalf of 1.3 billion Africans. I have a GDP of $2.3 trillion. Can we talk? They will talk to you not out of love, out of economics. Here I come. I present a market of 1.3 billion Africans. I have a GDP behind me of $2.3 trillion. Can we discuss? They will entertain you. The Americans, the Chinese, the Indians, who fellowship with you, not out of love, out of economics. This is where we need to get to. Now, as engineers, the mindset we should have is about Africa, about the African infrastructure master plan, the railways, telecommunication, power. You can see the scale we're talking about here now. And as engineers, let us be this African who speaks on behalf of 1.3 billion people in a GDP of $2.3 trillion. They always tell you, well, we don't have critical mass, we can't beneficiate because we're too small. Can you imagine if we were to open our eyes and have a diamond cluster where Botswana, South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Angola work as one unit? We put our diamond resources together. We'll be number one in the world in terms of diamonds. Can you imagine if we discuss with the world about diamonds together as one field and say we are the African diamond cluster? We have Botswana in here, South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Angola. You can imagine the leverage we're going to have. We can beneficiate because now we have the scale that they say we don't have. Platinum. Between Zimbabwe and South Africa, we have 90%, if not 95% of world platinum. They tell us you can't build a plant to produce catalytic converters because we have no scale. When we put Zimbabwe and South Africa together, we can produce the catalytic converters in this region and sell to Japan, sell to America, sell to China, sell to India. Scale is coming from collaboration, and engineering is key in those clusters. Mining engineering, mechanical engineering, electrical, in the diamond cluster, in the platinum cluster. Oil cluster, Nigeria, Equatorial Guinea, and Nigeria, whichever countries out there, they have a cluster on oil. They'll compete with the Middle East. They'll compete with everyone else, and they can then beneficiate and produce diesel and petrol, as opposed to Nigeria buying petrol, Nigeria buying diesel. Shame on you, foolish African. How dare you? 70 years of independence, and you are buying petrol, and then you produce petroleum. If you have the economies of scale, we'll be able to beneficiate and produce diesel, produce oil, petrol, iron and steel class, and so on. Why we need to do this? The major argument given against beneficiaries is that we don't have the critical mass. We don't have the market. We don't have the technology. We don't have the money. When you pull our resources together, the money will be there, and we'll be able to, the market will be there. So by coming up with these regional clusters, we'll be able to enable value addition in these clusters. Engineering in the fourth industrial revolution, that's your Professor Marwala's favorite subject. I don't know what I'll say here which he hasn't said to you, but let's see. When we say the fourth industrial revolution, we must understand the history. The first industrial revolution was about water and steam, leading to mechanized production. That's the first industrial revolution. The second was electrical power to create mass production. That's the second revolution, electric power. The third was electronics and information technology, ICT, leading to automated production. The fourth is building on the third, and we're fusing technologies now, blurring the difference between physical, digital, and biological spheres. That is what is bringing about what's called the fourth industrial revolution. Why do we say it's a distinct revolution? Why do we say it's the fourth? Number one, the velocity of the changes, massive speed of changes. The scope of the changes, the number of things affected by the changes, huge changes. The nature of the impact, systems impact. This is why we call it a revolution.